Welcome to Delicious and Nutritious, where we use the best quality ingredients to cook the tastiest food. And today what we're going to cook is going to be minestrone soup. I love soup. Honestly, it's such an easy way to get so many good nutrients into your body, number one. And number two, relatively simple to make. So honestly speaking, when we're doing this recipe, it calls for sauteing and all these other things. And while we will do that in this recipe, it's really not that hard or different if you just literally chop everything, throw it in a pot and cook it. I know some of you guys that may be a little bit more advanced in cooking may be like, dude, that's absolutely crazy. But realistically, when I'm doing this, I've many times chopped all this stuff up. I've thrown it in a pot. I've literally put the water on and it's come out like almost, if not the exact same. So without further ado, let's go for the minestrone soup recipe that's gonna be coming from the Food Network. And as always, we are gonna give you guys a rundown of all the ingredients, and as always, using as much organic as we possibly can. So let's make it happen. Starting off, the recipe is going to call for olive oil. You guys know that I am not a big fan of cooking with olive oil. If I do want to add olive oil, I will put it towards the end, maybe when the soup is a little bit hot and I'm reheating it or I'm about to eat it and it cools down just a little bit, then I'll put a little splash of olive oil, but I don't cook with it. I do cook with the coconut oil. Refined coconut oil, number one. And then we are going to need an onion. I am gonna be doubling this recipe. This is gonna be an onion that we're gonna chop up. We then need garlic cloves. Calls for a total of 4. I have a little bit over 8 here for the double. I like a little bit more garlic in my stuff. I feel like garlic is one of those ingredients that I'm a big fan of, so I always put some more in there. And then it calls for 1 large carrot, and we do have rainbow carrots here, so these are gonna taste virtually the same. They're a little bit different, so if you do prefer the regular one. So I have 3 medium-sized carrots that I will use. And then it's calling for a 1/3 pound of green beans. So I have a total of 1 pound of green beans. I really like green beans added in there a little bit extra. I feel like when I make the entire soup and I don't have a little bit extra vegetables in there, it kind of lacks the vegetable density for me. And then next, the recipe does not call for it, but I am going to be adding a little bit of squash and zucchini here. So I have 2 zucchini, 2 squash that we're gonna go ahead and dice up. We do have celery as well that we will use. And then we are gonna need dried oregano, dried basil. We're gonna need some freshly ground pepper. I always get the peppercorns when I put them in there. I feel like the antioxidant release when you do grind your fresh pepper is going to hold its potency more than if you buy ground pepper. And then next, we are gonna need some diced and some crushed tomatoes. Very important that we have both of these. They're gonna really make the soup what it is. So this one has basil in it. This one is fire roasted. It's not really that big of a deal. They all pretty much taste relatively similar when the soup comes together. And then the recipe calls for 15 ounces of kidney beans as well. So this is 15. Since I'm doubling, I'm gonna have 2. This one was a 15 and a 14 ounce of each. So basically when I do buy a big one, 28 ounces, pretty much double right there for both. 1 cup of elbow pasta. So we do have our jovial brown rice gluten-free pasta. Really love this one. And I'm just gonna make an asterisk here. So for this particular pasta, or pasta in general here, you have 2 options. One, you can cook it in the soup, or what you can do is you can cook it outside of the soup. So one of the things that I like to do, I like to cook it outside the soup, and then after it's done, I let it cool down a little bit, then I put it on the cutting board, and I use a knife, and I really like to get those little small O's because it reminds me of the Olive Garden when you have the really small O-type pasta in there. So you can recreate that with this type of pasta using the penne, but you have to kind of modify it as well. So that is an option for you. And then the other cool thing about doing that is the pasta doesn't sit in there and kind of get really, really soggy. So if you want a little bit more firm pasta, cooking it separately may be in your best interest, but you don't have to do that if that's not something that you desire. And then we need 6 cups of chicken broth that we're gonna use for the liquid. You can also put a little water in there. And then finally, grated Parmesan to put on top. Violife, great brand. You guys know we already love this. And then finally, some fresh basil as well if you do desire to garnish with it. And here we go, starting to cook. So number one thing we're gonna do is we need a big old pan. I'm telling you, if you guys don't have, I think this is gonna be a 6-quart Teflon pan, all stainless steel. As always, one of the things that I really like to cook with. So this is gonna go on the stove, and then we're gonna put some coconut oil in there, and then we're gonna start chopping the onion and getting it ready to go in. Hitting on the flame, and then we're gonna go in with the coconut oil. 2 tablespoons or so. And that's gonna be the base for all of our cooking of all of our vegetables. And the first thing we are going to do is dice up our onion. Just got our knife sharpened not too long ago, and they are super marvelous to work with. If we start crying, it hasn't been a long day, hasn't been a long week, it actually has. But the onions, potent organic onions are crazy, man. They are so potent. So we definitely might start crying here in a second. You guys can also use a chopper as well if you guys do want to do that, but you do not have to do that. It does aid in the process though. Makes it go a whole lot easier. And the wonderful thing about the Vitamix or other foldable cutting boards is we're able to discard skins, whatever we're using, pretty easily. So we're gonna dice the onions here. I'm gonna dice one of them and then I'm gonna chop the rest for time's sake. Whenever I dice, I usually cut it up like this. I have them in quarters. I'm cutting it down like semicircular like that, so I cut into it, and then I'm gonna keep it all together. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go sideways, just like that. Pretty easy. Most of the dicing is relatively about the same. If there's anything that I need to chop up real quick, I can just have a brief check and it's good to go. So this one's going right in there, and we're gonna have a lot of soup right here because we are doubling the recipe. Remember, it only calls for one, but I'm doubling it and I'm doing 2 of everything. Everything is times 2. And you can see me dice all of these real quick. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And all of our onions are chopped up, and now I'm really feeling it right now. Woo! Into the pan. Get it ready, there's gonna be a lot of vegetables in here. Hope you guys are into vegetables, because this is gonna be a jam-packed and super healthy soup for all of you guys. And next, we need 4 cloves of garlic minced. Remember, I'm doubling it. I am going to use a little bit more as well. Look at this right here. The garlic is actually growing. You could probably plant this right into the ground and it would just literally start growing garlic bulbs, I think. I'm not really sure exactly how garlic works. One thing you could do is use the knife and chop it up really fine, right? So if you guys do want to do that, I tend to just chop it up. I don't have a mincer on me right now, so if you just go through and chop, 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 pull it off the blade, put it back together, chop, 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 can really mince this up nicely. I am going to chop it up with a, I don't know what else you call this thing, a chopper. And this is gonna be finely chopped, which is basically minced garlic. Right there. And remember, it's gonna cook down. It just depends how fine you want this. There you go. Some nice minced garlic right there. And that, the onions are on the stove, they're cooking. They wanna go for about 4 minutes until they become translucent, and then we're adding in the garlic, which is ready to go right now. Stirring it up right here. Looks like we're getting towards the translucent part of the onions. And while we're doing that, because at some point we're gonna have to add more, we are going to add in, you might wanna move this to the side. We need some celery, so I'm just gonna break off the stalks right now. It says 2 celery stalks. So we're gonna go with 4, and I'm probably gonna use all the rest of this celery. And what I do with these, normally people throw these out in the ends. I put them in the freezer, and I save them for when I'm gonna make some chicken soup. And I use these as a base, because all you gotta do is throw some vegetables. You could throw some chicken bones in there and some salt and cook it for a few hours. And then these beautiful little celery stalks are going to create amazing flavor along with the carrot tops. I do both of those. So this is going to create an amazing base for a soup. Because oftentimes, what do you do with these? You just toss them? No need. These are going right into the freezer. And this is gonna be a great base for a chicken soup of some sort. So now we have the celery prepped. We're just gonna cut off the tops of the carrots real quick. Once again, these are going into the freezer and these are gonna be ready to get diced up. We're gonna now drop the garlic into the soup. Now time to add in the garlic. Goal is no garlic piece left behind. I'm on a mission to have as much garlic in there as possible. Another great thing about using a stainless steel pot is you don't have to worry about using any type of spoon. So you can literally use a metal spoon. You're not gonna scrape away any non-stick. Really easy way to stir. And now we need to dice the celery. You guys may be like, this is more than 2 stalks. I know. You don't have to tell me, I already know. That's going right into the freezer as well. All the butts of the celery, and we are now gonna dice up the celery. If you have bigger stalks and smaller stalks, what you can do is chop them in half and then cut those in half, and that will create more even celery dices as well. So we need to dice all of this up. And it's all personal preference. Whatever you want as far as the size of your vegetables in your soup, you can totally make it yours. That's the great thing about cooking all of your own food, is you are in control of the saltiness, the taste, the texture of the food. If you want it more well done or less well done, you want more crunch, you want less crunch, you want it to be whatever that is for you, you can make that happen. So we have the garlic in there right now. And we are going to add this in here, and then we are going to saute for a little bit longer. And if you wanted smaller celery, you can always cut them in half like I showed you. All of them could go in half. Some of them could go into a quarter. Depends on what type of dicing you do like. All right, and there is the celery, ready to go. I'm gonna stir that. Pop this up and stir it. Onions are looking translucent. We are ready to add in the celery and the carrots. If I were to recommend which one you do first, I would do the carrots first. Carrots are going to cook slower. So we need 1 large carrot. Remember, we're doubling the recipe. So carrots are a little bit more challenging to dice up, and they're a little bit more coarse of a vegetable. So meaning they're gonna take a little bit more time for us to have to cook them. So you see the difference between chopping the carrot and the celery? There we go. Carrot number 1, good to go. Pretty much minestrone soup is basically just cutting it up, sauteing it as you cut, and that's good to go. I love these rainbow carrots. Look at the antioxidants in there. Look at those, incredible. Look at the coloring. So all the coloring is going to be important. That's why they say eat the rainbow, because all different coloring will provide different antioxidants for you guys, different characteristics. That's why eating the rainbow is so very important. Look at that right there. We have white, we have purple and orange, and we have green. Nice assortment of different colors right there of vegetables. Alrighty, here we go. Right in. That's why one of these foldable cutting boards is so clutch, especially in something like this. Go ahead and stir that around. I know I have bigger spoons, but sometimes I just like a little bit more of a smaller spoon. It allows me to get through everything easy, make sure everything's stirred up, and then we're gonna keep cooking this right here as we get the next part prepped. And now we have to get the green beans ready, and then last but not least, we are going to add in the zucchini. So this is calling for a 1/3 pound of green beans, and I have a full pound here, and it's asking to be cut into a 1/2 inch. Obviously, I've already trimmed off the edges of these. And the final round here, is taking up most of the cutting board space to get every last vegetable we possibly can. How many vegetables can we fit in one soup recipe? That's gonna be the minestrone here. How many vegetables can we fit in one soup? All right, we're gonna stir this up, get this ready to go. And then last but not least, while the carrots and celery are going in, we are going to get our zucchini ready to be chopped up, because that's the one thing that I add in there. I love zucchini in a recipe like this. It just, I don't know, something about the texture of it, something about the taste of it just really hits home run for me. So we're about ready. The marvelous, amazing cutting board coming through clutch. Gonna drop this in there just like that. Stir it up. Look at all those amazing vegetables right there. A home run for the whole family. Minestrone soup. And next, and finally, we have the zucchini. If you like it, dicing it all up. And if you're doubling it, you definitely need a big pot. So I'm gonna cut that in half, and then I'm gonna third this so I can make sure to have everything. I'm looking at how many vegetables are in my pot, and I'm thinking, man, maybe I needed a bigger pot as opposed to what I'm using right now, which I do have. I have a taller pot, but this one will definitely hit the brink, but that's the wonder of the soup. There you go. All right, so I'm looking like I have a decent amount here, so I'm probably gonna leave this one out, and I'm just gonna get this other zucchini in there. I'll just put that in the oven and bake it. And then we are also going to be adding the oregano in right now. There we have our zucchini going in. Time to stir. Next, super easy, a teaspoon of oregano and basil. And since we are doubling this, we have the oregano, teaspoon. Oregano is a really, really powerful herb. So it looks like that's pretty much about it right there. A little bit over a teaspoon, I'm fine with that. And then we're gonna throw in some basil, 2 teaspoons. And then it's calling for a 3rd teaspoon of salt. You guys already know, gray salt here, Himalayan sea salt in our salt shaker right here. So I am going to use the gray salt because it's already out. And if I need any type of refined salt, I use it like that. But this is in chunks. I like to have a little bit of chunks as well because the chunks, I believe, like the herbs, are better when they're ground as opposed to being ground already and releasing whatever is locked up in there as far as energy and nutrient properties. So we are going to use a teaspoon and a half right there. A little bit more. Perfect. Time to stir it up. Make sure all that is mixed in there, and it smells incredible. Time to cook. So that's gonna be cooking for 3 minutes. Now what we need to do is we need to get these prepped and ready to go. So we're gonna need, not a knife, a can opener. Can opener will bring our diced and our crushed tomatoes ready to go. Number 1 and number 2. Remember guys, please remember to recycle all of your things. These are easy to recycle. Everything here is easy to recycle that we use, even plastic bags. You can save them up and you can bring them usually clean to your local grocery stores. I rinse mine out as well, or you can bring them to other places such as like Target is a great place universally that does accept recycled plastic film is what it's called, which is essentially plastic bags. And then we're gonna need our chicken broth, 6 cups of this. So I'm gonna need a total of 12 cups. I don't quite have that today. I overshot on the vegetables and undershot on this, but that's gonna be a total. So for this is going to be 32 fluid ounces, which comes out to 4 cups. So 3 of these total would do it if you guys are gonna be doubling it. And we are gonna stir this real quick, and then we're gonna add in the diced tomatoes. So 14 and 15 ounces. I virtually just call it 1 can, because 28 ounces of each, I wouldn't really worry about that extra 2. And these ones are going in there. And if you're using a smaller one, you can grab a smaller one if you're only making 1 recipe, because this will be 15 ounces and these ones are 28 ounces. All right, diced tomatoes and crushed tomatoes. And then what I do is I put a little bit of water in there because as you can see, sometimes it doesn't get everything. And I go ahead and maneuver that around to get everything out. And now when you look in there, a whole lot less tomatoes, and that one's good to go because it already had some water. And we are going to stir this up. Got the liquid going in there. We're starting to turn it into a soup, and we are going to be cooking this for 10 minutes. But before we start cooking for 10 minutes, we need to add in the broth. So here's broth number 1. If you guys are vegan, you can use vegetable broth as well. That does work here. So chicken broth number 1, and as you can see, this pot is getting mighty full. My soup recipes are always just tippity top of the pot because I want to have as much as possible and a little bit more. And remember guys, this is your recipe. So you can add as much or as little water as you want. If you want more density in your vegetables, don't add as much. So now we have a 10-minute timer set, and then we're gonna come back. Like I was saying, it's your recipe. If you don't want as much watery to your soup, don't add as much chicken broth. But if you want more and you want it to be traditional, you want it to have a lot of water, I like more vegetables, so I'm willing to skimp out on the water and I'm adding more vegetables. Remember, more vegetables does equal more water as well. The vegetables are all water-based, right? They're basically just sacks full of water with nutrients and everything like that. So you have to take that into account when you're adding things such as zucchini, such as celery, such as more onions and everything like that. It does give off more water into the dish and the soups. And so now we have to bring it to a boil, and then once it's at a boil, we reduce it to a simmer because we want to heat the soup up so it's able to cook the vegetables appropriately, and then we will set that 10-minute timer. And next, 10 minutes has been up, we are going to add in the pasta, which is going to be 2 total cups. I'm going to put the whole box in there, and then I'm going to put the kidney beans as well, which is going to be 15 ounces, which is 1 can of beans. I am doubling it, so it's going to be 2. Here we go, kidney beans going in. And just to be safe, since the jovial is a little bit different, I am going to actually cook it separately, and then we will come back and we will chop it up together and we will add it in. So 10 minutes on this, 12 minutes rolling boil, and we will be back. And we have officially finished the pasta, 12 minutes on that. The minestrone soup is done. And so for you guys, if you want to check this out, if you do care to do this, it does take a little bit of time and it's a little bit sticky, but here we go. We're going to cut it up like this. A sharp knife does definitely help right there. And we're pretty much just going to go through and do this for all the pasta, and then I'm not going to put it all in there. I'm going to store it separately. And tedious as it does seem, I think it adds a great touch that I am always fond of adding. Going the extra mile to make it look these little minestrone noodles, look at this. I love it. It brings me back. I don't know. I could be wrong. Let me know what you guys think. Maybe you just go in with the straight noodles, but it spreads it out throughout the pasta, which is one of the things that I really truly enjoy. Our minestrone soup is done. Check it out right there. Absolutely delicious and nutritious. Look at the vegetable density right there in that soup. That's what I'm talking about. And there you have it. So we'll take some of this pasta and we are going to break it up and put it in there. And you have yourself an incredible minestrone soup right there. And if you do want to do the chopped fresh basil, now would be the time to garnish it along with the Parmesan cheese. And they do ask for 2 tablespoons, so it is a decent amount here. I'm gonna go ahead and make it look nice and pretty. There's our minestrone soup right there. And a little bit of Parmesan cheese. This is gonna be the Violife Parmesan cheese that we will just sprinkle right on top right there. And there you have it, guys. We have ourselves amazing, delicious, and nutritious minestrone soup. And it's organic. So thank you guys for taking some time out of your day for making another delicious and nutritious treat. I can't wait to make more recipes for you that are gonna keep nourishing us and, of course, changing the world one bite at a time. I'll see you guys out on that next recipe.